My stepfather always treated me like I wasn't his real daughter, so I made sure he found out on Father's Day that he was right. When I was 8, my mother married Garrett, a successful real estate developer. At first, he seemed perfect. Taught me to ride a bike, helped with homework, built me a treehouse. But everything changed when my half-brother Connor was born 2 years later. Suddenly, I wasn't Garrett's little girl anymore. I was just baggage that came with Mom. It started small. When Connor took first steps, Garrett recorded everything. When I won the spelling bee, he was too busy with work to attend. Connor got the latest toys. I got socks and school supplies. Connor is his biological son, Mom would explain. It's different. By 14, the favoritism was impossible to ignore. Garrett paid for Connor's expensive baseball equipment but made me work at a neighbor's farm for my school supplies. When Connor broke Mom's favorite vase, Garrett laughed it off. When I spilled juice on his newspaper, I was grounded for a week. Worst was how he introduced me to people. "She's not really mine," he'd say, like I was some stray dog Mom had picked up. At family gatherings, he'd gush about Connor while completely ignoring my achievements. When I made honor roll 3 years running, he never mentioned it. When Connor got a participation trophy, Garrett posted about it for weeks. The breaking point came junior year during college applications. I'd maintained a 4.2 GPA while working 2 jobs to save for tuition. When State University accepted me with partial scholarship, I needed just $8,000 more per year. At dinner, I excitedly shared the news. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom beamed. Garrett barely looked up. $8,000 is a lot of money. "I can take student loans," I said. "Or go to community college," Garrett replied. Much more practical. Connor piped up. "Dad, didn't you say you were starting a college fund for me?" My stomach dropped. "That's different," Garrett said. "You're my son. I'm not paying for someone else's kid when I need to worry about my own son's future." Someone else's kid. After 8 years. That night I heard them arguing. "She's been part of this family for years," Mom said. "She's your daughter, not mine," Garrett replied coldly. "I've done more than enough. I put a roof over her head and food on the table. That's where my responsibility ends." I decided I was done being treated like a burden. Over the next months, I started paying attention to things I'd never noticed. How Garrett and I had completely different features. How Connor looked exactly like Garrett, but I looked nothing like either of them. While cleaning Garrett's office, I found a box of old photos. Buried at the bottom was a picture of Mom with another man during her pregnancy with me. On the back, "David and me, 7 months," in Mom's handwriting. I confronted Mom that evening. "Who is David?" Her face went white. "Where did you find this?" "Who is he?" "Someone I dated before Garrett. It ended badly." "Were you dating him when you got pregnant with me?" She nodded. "Is he my father?" Another nod. "Does Garrett know?" "No, and he can never know. David left when he found out I was pregnant. I met Garrett months later, and he just assumed, 'You've been lying for 17 years?" "I was protecting you," Mom said desperately. I stared at her in disbelief. "You let him treat me like garbage because he's not my real father, but never told him the truth?" I spent weeks tracking down David Brennan. When I found him, he agreed to meet. The moment I saw him, I knew. I had his eyes, his nose, his smile. We did a paternity test. 99.9% match. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere. David was everything Garrett wasn't. Kind, interested in my life, proud of my achievements. But I had a different plan in mind. Garrett's birthday was early June, just before Father's Day. Mom threw him a big party, inviting friends, family, and business associates. I waited until he was holding court with his buddies, probably bragging about Connor's bright future. I approached with a wrapped gift box. "Sorry to interrupt," I said sweetly, "but I have something special for Garrett." Everyone turned. Garrett seemed surprised I'd never given him a birthday gift. "What's this?" he asked. "Just a little something to show my appreciation for everything you've done for me." He opened it in front of everyone. Inside was the paternity test result, showing David Brennan was my biological father with 99.9% certainty. The room went silent as Garrett's face went from confusion to shock to rage. "What the hell is this?" "The truth," I said calmly. "You always said I wasn't really your daughter. Turns out you were right." The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. 30 people stood frozen, drinks halfway to their lips, watching Garrett's face cycle through emotions like a broken traffic light. His business partner, Roger, was the first to move, quietly setting down his beer and taking a step back. "This is some kind of joke," Garrett finally managed, his voice cracking. "No joke," I replied, pulling out my phone. "I can show you David's contact information if you'd like to verify. He's actually a really nice guy. We've been talking for weeks now." Mom appeared at Garrett's side, her face pale as death. She grabbed the paternity test from his hands, scanning it desperately like she might find some mistake in the numbers. 99.9%, I continued conversationally. "That's pretty definitive, don't you think?" Garrett's Uncle Frank, a man who'd never said more than hello to me in 8 years, stepped forward. "Now wait just a minute. What exactly are you trying to pull here, young lady?" "I'm not pulling anything," I said, maintaining my sweet tone. "I'm just sharing some family news. Isn't this what we do at family gatherings? Share updates about our lives?" Connor, who'd been standing near the snack table, walked over with a confused expression. "What's everyone looking at?" "Your sister," Garrett spat, "is trying to destroy our family." "Half-sister," I corrected gently. "And I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm just being honest for the first time in my life." Mom finally found her voice. "Penelope, we need to talk. Right now. Privately." "Actually, I think we've had enough private conversations, don't you?" I turned to address the room. "My mother has been lying to all of you for 17 years. She let Garrett believe he was my father when she knew perfectly well he wasn't." The guests began shifting uncomfortably. A few started heading toward the door. Roger caught Garrett's eye and mouthed, I'm going to go. Don't you dare leave, Garrett commanded. But Roger was already gone, along with 3 other business associates. Garrett's sister Patricia, a woman who'd always treated me like an unwelcome interruption at family dinners, stepped into the fray. This is hardly appropriate dinner conversation. You're right, I agreed. It would have been much more appropriate 17 years ago, but since Mom decided to keep it a secret, I thought Garrett's birthday party would be the perfect time to clear the air. You vindictive little... Garrett started toward me, but Connor stepped between us. Dad, what's going on? I don't understand. I knelt down to Connor's eye level. Despite everything, I genuinely loved my little brother. None of this was his fault. Connor, remember how Dad always says I'm not really his daughter? Well, it turns out he was right. My real father is a man named David, and I just found out about him. Connor's eyes widened. So you're not my sister? I'm still your sister, I said firmly. We have the same mom. That makes us half-siblings, which means we're still family. But Dad isn't your dad. No, sweetie, he's not. Connor looked between Garrett and me, processing this information with the brutal honesty only children possess. So you've been lying this whole time? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Mom burst into tears. I was protecting our family, she sobbed. From what? Connor asked. From the truth? Garrett's face was growing redder by the minute. Everyone out, he announced. This party is over. Actually, I said, standing back up, I have one more announcement to make. The remaining guests froze. David, my real father, has offered to pay for my college education, all 4 years plus room and board. Isn't that wonderful? It's amazing what biological parents will do for their children. Garrett looked like he was about to have a stroke. I continued. He's also invited me to spend the summer with him and his girlfriend. They live in Colorado, and apparently there are some great hiking trails there. He wants to make up for lost time. You're not going anywhere, Garrett growled. Actually, I am. I turn 18 in 2 weeks, which means I'm legally an adult. Mom can't stop me, and you certainly can't. This is my house, which Mom owns half of, if I remember correctly. Community property laws and all that. I smiled sweetly. David's girlfriend is a lawyer? She explained it to me. The room erupted in whispered conversations. Garrett's Aunt Grace was furiously texting someone, probably spreading the gossip to family members who weren't at the party. His friend Tony from the golf club was taking pictures with his phone, no doubt planning to share this drama with everyone at the country club. Mom grabbed my arm. Penny, please, let's go upstairs and talk about this like adults. I think we're way past private conversations, don't you? I pulled my arm free. Besides, shouldn't Garrett get to participate? After all, this affects him too. Garrett's business partner, Kyle, who'd been standing near the kitchen island, finally spoke up. Maybe we should all just calm down and discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Garrett snapped. She's trying to embarrass me in front of my friends and family. Actually, I said, I'm trying to free you from a burden you never wanted in the first place. You should be thanking me. A burden? Mom gasped. That's what he called me, remember? When you two were arguing about college tuition, he said his responsibility to me ended with putting a roof over my head. I turned back to Garrett. Well, good news. Your responsibility is officially over. David wants to be involved now, so you can focus all your attention on Connor. Garrett's mother, a tiny woman who'd never liked Mom, chose that moment to enter the conversation. I always knew something was off about this situation. The timing never made sense. Mother, Garrett warned. No, I'm speaking my mind, she continued. That girl never looked like you, and the way she acted, so different from Connor. I told you from the beginning something wasn't right. What do you mean the way I acted? I asked. Sneaky, manipulative, always watching, always listening. Connor's such a sweet, open boy. You were always scheming. I was surviving, I shot back. There's a difference. Connor tugged on Garrett's shirt. Dad, is grandmother saying Penny is bad? No, son, Garrett said, shooting his mother a warning look. She's just upset. But you always said Penny wasn't really family, Connor said with devastating innocence. So if she's not bad and she's not really family, why couldn't you just be nice to her? The question hit like a bomb. Even the adults who'd been whispering stopped to stare at Connor. Garrett knelt down to Connor's level. It's complicated, buddy. It doesn't seem complicated, Connor replied. If someone lives in your house, you should be nice to them. That's what you taught me. Jesus Christ, Garrett muttered under his breath. Garrett, his sister Patricia snapped. Language. Don't lecture me about language. Garrett stood up. My life just exploded in front of 30 people thanks to this little manipulator and her lies. I didn't lie about anything, I said. The paternity test speaks for itself. You manipulated the situation. You planned this. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted you to know the truth. You've spent years telling everyone I wasn't really your daughter. I just proved you were right. Mom stepped between us. That's enough, both of you. No, I said firmly. I'm not done. I turned to address the remaining guests, who were watching this family meltdown like it was premium cable television. I want everyone here to understand something. For 9 years, I've listened to this man tell people I wasn't really his daughter. He said it at family dinners, holiday parties, school events, and business functions. He made sure everyone knew I was just some kid who came with Mom. I paused, looking directly at Garrett. He was right. But what he never bothered to ask was why Mom lied about it. Why she let him think I was his biological child when she knew I wasn't. That's enough, Mom said desperately. No, it's not. I was on a roll now, years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. Because the answer is simple. She lied because she knew you wouldn't have married her if you'd known the truth. She knew you wouldn't want to raise another man's child. Garrett's face went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying Mom trapped you. She let you believe I was yours so you'd marry her and give her financial security. And then, when you treated me like garbage because deep down you knew something was wrong, she let it happen because she was too scared to tell you the truth. The room was dead silent now. Even Connor had stopped fidgeting. Mom's face crumpled. That's not… I loved you. I loved both of you. Did you? I asked. Or did you love the lifestyle Garrett could provide? How dare you? She whispered. How dare I tell the truth? How dare I point out that you chose financial security over my well-being? How dare I mention that you let your husband treat your daughter like an unwanted burden for years rather than risk losing your comfortable life? Garrett was staring at Mom now, pieces clicking into place in his mind. Is that true? Did you lie to me so I'd marry you? Mom opened and closed her mouth several times before answering. I was scared. I was pregnant and alone, and David had left. That's not what I asked, Garrett said coldly. Did you lie to me about being Penny's father so I would marry you? The silence stretched on forever. Finally, Mom nodded. Jesus Christ, Garrett breathed. His friend Tony whistled low. Damn, man, that's rough. Get out, Garrett said quietly. What? Mom asked. Everyone, get out of my house, now. Garrett, Mom started. Now! The guests didn't need to be told twice. They scattered like startled birds, grabbing purses and jackets and muttering apologies as they fled toward the door. Within 5 minutes, only our family remained in the suddenly too quiet house. Garrett stood in the center of his destroyed living room, looking around at the empty bottles and half-eaten appetizers like he was seeing it all for the first time. 9 years, he said to himself. Garrett, let me explain, Mom began. 9 years I've been raising another man's child. 9 years I've been paying for her food, her clothes, her school supplies. 9 years I've been listening to people ask why she doesn't look like me. You love her, Mom said desperately. I know you do. Garrett laughed, but there was no humor in it. Love her? I resented her. Every single day I resented her presence in my house, in my life, in my marriage, and the whole time my instincts were right. She wasn't mine. But you raised her? Under false pretenses, Garrett exploded. You lied to me. You made me believe she was my responsibility when she never was. Connor started crying. The yelling had finally gotten to him. I picked up my little brother and held him close. It's okay, buddy. The adults are just having a disagreement. Are you really not Dad's daughter? Connor asked through his tears. No, sweetie, I'm not. Are you still going to live here? I looked around the house that had never really felt like home. No, I don't think so. Where will you go? I'll stay with David for a while. My real father. Connor's lower lip trembled. Will I ever see you again? Of course you will, I said, kissing the top of his head. You're my brother. Nothing changes that. Garrett was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. This is unbelievable. 9 years of my life. 9 years of marriage built on a lie. It wasn't all a lie, Mom said weakly. We were happy. Were we? Or was I just too stupid to see what was happening? He stopped pacing and stared at Mom. How many people knew? Knew what? That Penny wasn't mine. How many people figured it out? Mom's silence was answer enough. Your sister knew, didn't she? That's why she always looked at me like I was an idiot at family gatherings. Garrett, your mother knew. I could see it in her face whenever she visited. They all knew I was raising another man's child, and they all played along with your little charade. It wasn't a charade, Mom protested. You're a good father to her. I'm not her father, Garrett shouted. I never was. And apparently everyone knew it but me. He turned to me, his face twisted with anger and humiliation. And you knew the truth and you let me keep playing the fool. I found out 3 months ago, I said quietly. I've been trying to figure out how to handle it. So you decided to humiliate me in front of my friends and business associates? I decided to stop living a lie. By destroying my reputation? By making me look like an idiot who couldn't figure out his own wife was cheating on him? Mom wasn't cheating, I pointed out. She was with David before she met you. But she lied about it. She let me think you were mine. Connor's crying intensified. The fighting was scaring him. That's enough, I said firmly. Connor doesn't need to hear this. Connor is my son, Garrett snapped. My real son. I'll decide what he needs to hear. Fine, then maybe you should decide to stop screaming and start acting like the adult in the room. Garrett's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare lecture me about being an adult. You're 17 years old. You don't know anything about real life. I know enough to understand that secrets destroy families. I know enough to see that living a lie isn't protecting anyone. Living a lie? Garrett laughed bitterly. That's rich. Coming from someone who just spent 3 months planning the perfect way to detonate my life. I spent 3 months trying to find the courage to tell you the truth. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you waited until the most public, humiliating moment possible to drop this bomb. I adjusted Connor in my arms. He was getting heavy, but I wasn't putting him down until the yelling stopped. You want to know why I chose tonight? I asked. Enlighten me. Because last week, when Mrs. Patterson asked about my college plans at the grocery store, you told her you weren't paying for someone else's kid to get an education. You said it right in front of me, like I wasn't even there. Garrett's face flushed. And because yesterday, when Connor asked if I could come to his baseball game this weekend, you said family events were for real family members. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. So I decided it was time for you to know exactly whose kid you'd been refusing to support all these years. Mom finally spoke up. Penny, this isn't how I wanted you to find out about David. How did you want me to find out? On my wedding day? When I was 30? Never? I hoped it wouldn't matter. That Garrett would love you like his own daughter. But he doesn't, I said simply. And he never has. And now we all know why. Garrett sank into his leather recliner, suddenly looking older than his 42 years. 9 years, he repeated. I'm sorry, Mom said quietly. I'm so sorry. Are you? Are you really sorry? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Mom didn't answer. Connor had stopped crying but was still sniffling against my shoulder. Penny, are you mad at Mom and Dad? I'm not mad at anyone, buddy. I'm just tired of pretending. Pretending what? Pretending we're something we're not. Garrett looked up at us. What happens now? Now I go live with David, I said. I start college in the fall with his help. And you get what you've always wanted. A family without me in it. And what about Connor? What about him? He's going to ask questions. He's going to want to know why his sister left. His half-sister, I corrected. And you can tell him whatever you want. You're good at creating stories. Garrett flinched. Or, I continued, you could tell him the truth. That sometimes families are more complicated than they appear. That love isn't always enough to hold people together. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone go. Connor pulled back to look at me. I don't want you to go. I know, buddy. But it's better this way. For who? For everyone. I set Connor down and knelt in front of him. Listen to me. I love you very much. You're the best little brother anyone could ask for. But Dad and we need some space to figure things out. Will you call me? Every day if you want. Promise? I promise. Connor hugged me tight. I'm going to miss you. I'll miss you too. When I stood up, Mom was crying again. Penny, please. We can work this out. We're a family. No, I said gently. We're not. We're people who lived in the same house for 9 years. There's a difference. But I raised you. I changed your diapers and stayed up all night when you were sick and helped you with homework. And I'm grateful for all of that. But it doesn't change the fact that you built our entire relationship on a lie. I was protecting you. From what? From having a father who actually wanted me? From knowing that someone out there was looking for me all these years? Mom's face crumpled. David didn't want us. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Because you told him you didn't want him in our lives. David showed me the emails, Mom. He tried to contact you dozens of times over the years. You blocked him every time. The room went silent again. You've been in contact with him for years? Garrett asked. No, I said. But he tried to be. Mom made sure that never happened. Garrett turned to stare at Mom. You've been lying about that too? I thought it would be confusing for Penny to have 2 fathers. So you decided for her? You decided she couldn't have a relationship with her biological father? I was protecting our family. Our family? Garrett stood up. What family? The family you built on lies? The family where I've spent 9 years resenting a child who wasn't even mine? The family where you let me treat your daughter like garbage because you were too cowardly to tell the truth? Mom had no answer for that. I walked to the front door and picked up the overnight bag I'd hidden behind the coat rack earlier. Where are you going? Mom asked. David's hotel. He's driving me to Colorado tomorrow. You can't just leave. Actually, I can, and I am. But your things. I already packed what I need. You can donate the rest. Garrett watched me shoulder the bag. Just like that? You're walking out of our lives? I'm walking out of your life, I corrected. Connor will always be my brother. And Mom will always be my mother. Even if our relationship needs some serious work. And me? I looked at the man who'd raised me for 9 years but never loved me. You'll always be the man who took care of me when no one else would. Even if you did it reluctantly. Even if you resented every minute of it. You still did it. And I'm grateful for that. Garrett's eyes filled with tears. I did love you, in my own way. I know you tried to, I said gently. But it's hard to love someone when you feel like you've been tricked into it. What if I'd known the truth from the beginning? I don't know. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe they wouldn't have been. But we'll never know, will we? I opened the front door. David was waiting in the driveway, leaning against his rental car. When he saw me, he smiled. The same smile I saw in the mirror every morning. That's him? Garrett asked. That's him. He looks like you. Yeah, he does. Connor ran to the window to wave at David. David waved back enthusiastically. He seems nice, Connor said. He is nice, I replied. Penny, Mom called as I stepped onto the porch. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. I know you are, Mom. But sorry doesn't change what happened. It doesn't give me back the relationship I could have had with David. It doesn't undo 9 years of feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. But maybe we can start over? Maybe we can build something better? Maybe, I said. But not here. Not like this. I closed the door behind me and walked toward David's car. Behind me, I could hear Connor crying again and Mom trying to comfort him. I could hear Garrett's angry voice starting up another argument. But I didn't look back. David opened the passenger door for me. How did it go? About as well as you'd expect, I said, buckling my seatbelt. Are you okay? I will be. As we drove away, I watched the house grow smaller in the side mirror. Connor's face was pressed against the living room window, watching us leave. I waved goodbye, and he waved back until we turned the corner. Any regrets? David asked. I thought about that as we drove through the familiar streets of the neighborhood where I'd grown up but never felt at home. No, I said finally. No regrets. Good, he said, because we have a lot of catching up to do. 3 months later, I started my freshman year at Colorado State University with a full scholarship David had helped me secure. I was majoring in family therapy, inspired by my own experience navigating complex family dynamics. Connor called me every other day, updating me on his baseball season and asking when I was coming to visit. I'd promised to come for Christmas and I intended to keep that promise. Mom called less frequently, but we were slowly rebuilding our relationship. She'd started therapy to work through her own issues with honesty and trust. Garrett had moved out temporarily while they figured out whether their marriage could survive the revelations. I felt bad for Connor, watching his parents separate. But I also knew he was better off learning the truth about his family, even if it hurt in the short term. David and I went hiking every weekend, making up for lost time one trail at a time. He told me stories about my early childhood that Mom had never shared, how I'd laughed in my sleep, how I'd insisted on wearing my shoes on the wrong feet for an entire month when I was 3. I missed all of that, he said one afternoon as we sat on a mountaintop overlooking the valley below. But you're here now, I replied. I am, and I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in my life, I believed someone when they said that. On Father's Day that year, I sent Garrett a card. Inside, I'd written, "Thank you for giving me a home when I needed one. Thank you for showing me what it means to protect your children, even when it's hard. I hope someday you can forgive Mom and find peace with our complicated story." I sent David a card too. It said, "Happy first Father's Day. I'm so glad we found each other." That evening, David called me with excitement in his voice. "I got a response from Garrett," he said. "Really? What did he say?" "He said he'd like to meet me sometime. He said he has questions about your childhood that only I could answer. Are you going to see him? If you're okay with it." I thought about that for a moment. The idea of my two fathers meeting was strange, but not unwelcome. "Yeah," I said. "I think that would be good." They met 2 weeks later at a coffee shop halfway between Colorado and my hometown. According to David, they talked for 3 hours about me, about family, about the complex web of relationships that had shaped my life. "He's not a bad man," David told me afterward. "He's just someone who got caught up in a situation that was bigger than he could handle." "Did you tell him that?" "I did. I also told him he did a good job raising you, even under difficult circumstances." "How did he respond to that?" "He cried a little, said he wished he'd been a better father to you." "He wasn't my father," I said, "but he was something, and that something mattered, even if it wasn't perfect." A year later, Garrett and Mom reconciled. They'd both undergone extensive therapy, both individually and as a couple. They'd learned to communicate honestly for the first time in their relationship. Connor called me with the news. "Mom and Dad are back together," he announced excitedly. "How do you feel about that?" I asked. "Good, I think. They seem happier now. They talk to each other more. And Dad asks about you sometimes." "He does?" "Yeah. He wanted to know how you're doing in school and if you like Colorado." "What did you tell him?" "I told him you're really happy, and that David seems like a good dad." "What did he say?" "He said he's glad you found where you belong." That phrase stuck with me for days. Where I belong. For the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. Not because someone felt obligated to take care of me, but because someone genuinely wanted me in their life. The following Christmas, I did go home to visit. The atmosphere in the house was completely different. Garrett was warmer, more relaxed. He asked genuine questions about my studies and my life in Colorado. He even showed interest in my relationship with David. "I'm glad you found him," he told me on Christmas Eve as we were cleaning up after dinner. "Are you really?" "Yes. You deserve to have a father who wanted you from the beginning. I'm sorry I couldn't be that for you." "You couldn't be something you weren't," I said. "And that's not your fault. It's not yours either," he replied. "I want you to know that. None of what happened was your fault. I know that now." "Good." That night, Connor crawled into my old bed with me, just like he used to when he was smaller and had nightmares. "Penny?" he whispered in the dark. "Yeah, buddy? I'm glad you told the truth about David." "Why?" "Because now everyone's happier. Even Mom and Dad, even though they were really upset at first." "Sometimes telling the truth hurts people in the short term," I said, "but it usually helps them in the long term." "Is that why you did it? To help everyone?" "I did it because I was tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't. But yeah, I think it helped everyone. I miss you when you're in Colorado. I miss you too. But we talk all the time, and I visit when I can." "I know, and David seems really nice. He sent me a Christmas present." "He did?" "A baseball glove. A really nice one. He said since you're his daughter, that makes me his nephew, and uncles always spoil their nephews." I smiled in the darkness. David had never mentioned sending Connor a gift. That was thoughtful of him. "Do you think he'd want to meet me someday?" "I think he'd love to meet you. Maybe this summer when you visit?" "Maybe." Connor was quiet for a few minutes, and I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then he spoke again. "Penny?" "Yeah? Thank you for being my sister, even though we're only half-siblings. Thank you for being my brother. And Connor, half-siblings are still full siblings where it counts." "Where does it count?" "In your heart." The next morning, I woke up to find a text message from David. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I'm so grateful for the gift of getting to be your father." I texted back, "Merry Christmas, Dad. I'm grateful too." As I got ready for Christmas morning with Connor's excited chatter filling the house, I reflected on how much my life had changed in 18 months. I'd lost the family I thought I had, but I'd gained the family I'd always needed. Sometimes the truth destroys everything you thought you knew about your life, but sometimes that destruction is exactly what you need to build something better. My stepfather always treated me like I wasn't his real daughter. Turns out he was right about that, but he was wrong about what it meant. Being his real daughter wouldn't have made me more worthy of love. It wouldn't have made me more deserving of kindness or respect or consideration. I wasn't the problem with our family. The lies were the problem. The secrets were the problem. The inability to love someone just because they needed love, that was the problem. David loved me not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Garrett had tried to love me because he thought he had to, but he couldn't get past the resentment of feeling tricked. Mom had lied to protect herself, but she'd convinced herself she was protecting me. Connor loved me simply because I was his sister, no qualifications needed. Everyone else in our family had complicated reasons for their feelings. Connor just loved me because that's what brothers do. Maybe that's the most important lesson I learned from this whole experience. Love doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to come with conditions or explanations or justifications. Sometimes love is as simple as a 12-year-old boy saying, "You're my sister," and that's enough. And sometimes, that really is enough. 5 years later, I'm a licensed family therapist specializing in blended families and adoption issues. David walked me down the aisle at my wedding last spring, and Garrett was there too, sitting with Mom and Connor in the second row. My husband knows the whole story, of course. He says it's one of the things he loves about me, that I'm not afraid to tell the truth, even when it's difficult. "Especially when it's difficult," he corrected. when I pointed out that the truth had caused a lot of pain for my family. The truth didn't cause the pain, he said. The lies did. You just uncovered it. He was right, of course. The pain was always there, festering beneath the surface. The truth just brought it into the light where it could finally heal. My daughter was born last month. David is completely smitten with his granddaughter, and Connor is already planning to teach her to play baseball when she's older. Even Garrett sent a gift, a beautiful hand-carved wooden rocking chair with a note that said, "Every baby deserves to be rocked by someone who loves them unconditionally." It was the first time he'd ever acknowledged that I hadn't received that kind of love as a child. It was also his way of saying he hoped my daughter would have something different. She will. Because I know now that love isn't about biology or obligation or duty. Love is about choice. Every day you choose to love someone or you don't. David chooses to love me every day. My husband chooses to love me every day. Connor has chosen to love me every day since he was 2 years old. And now I get to choose to love my daughter every day, simply because she exists and she's mine, and that's more than enough reason. My stepfather always treated me like I wasn't his real daughter, so I made sure he found out on Father's Day that he was right. But the most important thing I learned from that experience wasn't about him at all. It was about me. I learned that I deserve to be loved not because of who I am to other people, but because of who I am, period. I learned that the truth is always worth telling, even when it hurts. And I learned that family isn't defined by blood or law or obligation. Family is defined by love, and love, real love, is always a choice.